And good afternoon, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. Thank you for joining me. I'm doing an ongoing series of interviews with congressional candidates running for as Republicans across the United States. And thus, we have Eli Clemmer here today, who is running for Congress in New Hampshire. Eli, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Glad to be here. And we pronounce it Eli. And
Eli,
I'm here
thank
with
you.
my wife, Amanda.
Thank you. Okay. It's a true partnership.
That's
That's
right.
excellent. Your chief advisor, right? All right. Ellie, so let's talk a little bit and Eli, thank you. Let's introduce yourself to my audience, to New Hampshire. Let's start with talking a little bit about your background, how it is that you've arrived at where you are as a candidate.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I am a political outsider. I will not deny it. It is perfectly true. I started my campaign off in January this year, not having any clue what the heck I was getting myself into.
Oh
But
yeah, well, it's an exhilarating experience,
that it
having been there
is.
myself. And
We,
I
yep,
urge people to run because if you have a couple of issues that you'd like to knock off the plate, there's no better way to do it than to stand up and run for office because the media will have to pay attention.
exactly. So we've come a very long way. We are consistently polling and first, second place for the race that we're in. I decided to get into the race initially because by trade, I'm a public school teacher. Yeah, yes, there are conservative public school teachers out there.
That's huge. I mean, to me, that's especially actually now in this particular time of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of talk about whether or not public schools should reopen, and this is going to be, I think, a very big issue this summer, with I think most people wanting to see them reopen in some way, but the teachers union is against it. So you know, you're already on a hot button issue. Plus, the fact is that being a public school teacher, you have a front seat in terms of how the, I guess you might, in the broad sense, say the establishment is teaching, quote unquote, our children how to think and how to develop in this world. So that to me brings a huge amount of insight to a race. Lyndon Johnson was a public school teacher before he ran for president or got involved in politics. I think that there are several others. Jimmy Carter, I think, was a teacher before he became governor. So, you're part of a good and long tradition of teachers getting into politics. And you're also, I've noticed, pretty good on the media side of things. You've got a very slick website. You seem to know what you're doing in that area, and that's very important. Do you have a background in that?
Well, I have two master's degrees, one of which is in teaching, the other of which is in information science. So, to correct, yes, I'm a public school teacher, but I am a conservative male school library media specialist. Quite unique.
That's incredible. And
So,
there's a lot, and you know something, there's a lot more of them out there, but they kind of talk about it a little bit, sotto voce. Let's not tell anybody because, the establishment in those areas tends to be left of center. And as such, I would argue they don't brook opposition very lightly and they don't like divergent opinions in spite of what they may posture as. Now, you
well,
are running as a, yeah.
it is in the school policy to have both points of view, neutral point of view, let the students decide, and I strictly stand by that. The problem is when you have teachers who only put off the socialist leftist agenda. But that was also a big reason why in the race, I decided to run in large part due to the other candidates not really inspiring New Hampshire. The other candidates also were not speaking towards the cultural issues and working with kids, working with the youth. I'm really, really keyed in on the pulse of culture, and our culture needs to be redeemed if we want to keep the country free. That's why I'm a very big in favor of freedom of speech online as well as in person. And I also really speak against especially our colleges, basically being socialist propaganda outlets. And we send our good centrist or conservative students into colleges, and way too many of them come out of that as little socialists ready to step in line and do what they're told.
No, I've seen this happen. I've seen young people go in as conservatives to college. I mean, Karl Marx went into college as a conservative. He had written a book about Jesus he came out as a Marxist. um, the again, you're touching on a very good issue, and also I think that this is particularly important because for reasons that are maybe a little too complicated to get into right now, the liberal Democrats are winning the demographic war with young people right now. Younger people, millennials. When I say younger, I'm talking under 30, maybe under 35, are skewing to the left. I mean, they're going toward Democrats, and I don't think that they're all that conscious of why that is. It's more of a just a kind of an easy out. I want to be one of the beautiful people. I want to get acceptance. I don't want to have be labeled something that's going to be demonized. It's easier, so people keep their head low and they go left, and they internalize that. And to have you come along, Eli, and say, "Hey, I'm a millennial and I'm a conservative, and here's why," that's very impactful. And I hope that you are able to, whether or not you win your race, I hope that you're able to develop a national platform, because that's really the future of the Republican Party and of conservatives, to wake people up, to have people genuinely be woke in terms of who they are, what are their real interests,
Exactly. And that's why it is so important that we as Republicans focus on the cultural issues that are going on, because we've let the Democrats get away with this for decades. They control the mass media, they control the newspapers, they control the book publishers, they control the colleges, they have controlled the cultural narrative for far too long. And that's all that our kids have been raised with. It's time that we Republicans make a stand and work to reclaim our cultural values. The everyday American, they care about their job and they care about their family life. We conservatives, we're the ones who want to help families thrive. So it's common sense that they jump on board the conservative party. It's just a case of, getting our message across, because most people, they haven't actually heard the right-wing point of view. It's just been the liberal point of view that they've been spoon-fed since birth. So that's what we need to change. Absolutely.
So when you say they haven't heard the right-wing point of view, which is the truth, and so thus they're told what the right wing believes by leftists,
Exactly.
who are like not exactly looking at this thing objectively. I could use some examples, but I'm going to avoid them. Talk a little bit about what that point of view is and how that positively impacts the life of younger people and of the country.
A lot of it comes down to personal responsibility. A lot of it also comes down to our freedom. Most kids, they like the ability to be free and make their own life choices. They really don't like being told what to do, what to say, what jokes they can laugh at, and what's not appropriate. It seems in decades past, the Republicans were a bit more the party who would say, no, that's not okay. That's not an okay joke. That's not an okay movie, TV show. But these days, it is increasingly the left who's been saying that. And so the youth, from what I know about those, I apologize for being a millennial. My generation is pretty bad. There's some of us that are redeemable, but especially the younger millennials I know, and the ones who are in high school and college right now, it's like they want to be conservative. They like a lot of conservative ideals at heart, but they just refuse to admit that because they've been told that we're these awful, horrible people who
they want to get invited. They want to get invited to parties, and they want to be able to date women, and they want to be able to do all the normal things that younger people want to do. And to bring up that you might be a conservative, people literally become. I mean, I've seen this. I was at a social gathering, and I mentioned some mild conservative point of view, and the whole room changed. I mean, there was one woman, I thought she was going to faint. She had to be taken out on a stretcher practically. People turned white. They were like, oh my God, I can't believe we're in the present. Somebody's here. It's like a bubble that they operate in. And unfortunately, they control the high ground of the culture. So when you have somebody come along and poke a little stick in the bubble, it's the more people that can do that, the more we're going to be free. And I tell liberals and conservatives and liberals as well. I mean, you want to have freedom, be liberal, but that means literal freedom. You have to tolerate other people, because if you don't, then the shoe may be on the other foot and you won't be tolerated. it's, it's kind of a two-way street. So, you know,
Exactly.
and the cancel culture is huge. I'm glad you're bringing that up. I mean, that's something that we're seeing even recently. The head, President Trump held an event at the White House signing a bill that had to do with helping Hispanic immigrants. And the head of the Goya company that makes, chickpeas and canned goods was there. And he said something positive about President Trump. Now he's facing boycotts. He's facing death threats. He's facing people pressuring the supermarkets to pull his product. This isn't from average people. This isn't from liberals. I mean, average Hispanics, certainly. This is from a well coordinated group of leftists who are trying to suppress anyone who doesn't goose step to their point of view. So when you have somebody running for Congress who opposes that and gets a little airplay, first of all, you better watch it because you're going to end up getting vigorously attacked, and just accept that they're not going to love you.
We've been attacked already. Come on, bring it on. I've got the facts on my side, and I'm the one who's saying let's listen to one another. So when the liberals and they want to try to shout me down, okay, I'm over here. When you're ready to have a calm, mature adult discussion, come back over here.
Excellent. All right, Eli Clemmer is my guest. He's a candidate for Congress in New Hampshire, running as a Republican. Eli, what is your position on President Trump? He's coming to Portsmouth, I think today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I'm a supporter of President Trump, and I will be there tomorrow for sure.
Excellent.
And it's also great that, President Trump, he's also really helping out with calling out the censorship of conservatives online. And it's great to see other politicians caring about these issues so yes, Trump, good in my book.
Excellent. And look, I'm doing this program on YouTube and Facebook and all the social media, and I'm grateful for that. But I have to say, with constructive criticism, that they are deplatforming conservative opinion.
That is absolutely true.
And they're shadow banning. I've been told that this program has been shadow banned by a couple of people who know how that works. And recently, and there are several leftist groups that are involved in this, including I'm not going to mince words here, including the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center, who are trying to cleanse the public space of anyone that doesn't genuflect to the left. Recently, they deplatformed Stefan Molyneux, who is a philosopher who supported Trump. And I think that it's going to get worse as we move toward the election, because especially if Trump is doing well, and I think he is starting to do well. The most recent poll shows that he's making a comeback. It's going to get real ugly out there. So what would you as a sitting congressman do to stop this kind of censorship and this sort of crackdown, this culture kampf of opinion and views?
Well, one big thing is I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware, because a lot of conservatives online are aware, the issue with social media and that they're legally treated as a platform, but they've been wanting to act more like publishers as of late. So it all comes down to 1996. There was Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which laid out that the internet was supposed to be open and free. And the government, they realized that, hey, you're going to have people on websites posting their own content, and the people who own the websites don't want to be liable for every little copyright infringement or anything else of the sort that comes up. It'll basically cause the internet to grind to a halt and not allow it to grow. So they changed the games a bit for the internet, for websites and social media companies, and that they are treated more as a public forum, a platform, if you will. This is distinctly different from a publisher, and that a platform, there's a platform people can communicate, they can post their own content. YouTube, Facebook, users create the content. But the other side of that coin is they then are not the ones to be a publisher and personally select what content they want and get rid of the stuff they don't want. It primarily comes down to one little clause, in that it states the reasons why social media is allowed to censor, such as illegal content, explicit content, etc. And then it does say they're allowed to censor in good faith. Well, in good faith to you and me doesn't sound like political opposition. That sounds like it's pressing your own personal point of view too much, especially because these social media companies, they keep stating how they are unbiased. They keep stating how their terms of use are fair across the board. But we've seen time and again and again and again that conservatives are being censored for stuff that, joking about slapping someone, for instance, which I'm not endorsing someone saying that, but a conservative would be shut down for that. You go to liberals and they have pictures of police getting murdered in cartoon images, and that's allowed to stay on the platform. So social media companies, if they want to keep their liability from copyright infringement and such for being treated as a platform, they need to hold their end of the deal and stop acting like a publisher. If they want to act like a publisher, so be it. Government will withdraw that special legal immunity that was provided and let the floodgates of lawsuits commence.
No, I think that you're absolutely right about that. And the only thing I'd add is that this is the one area where I agree with my own senator here in Massachusetts, that being Elizabeth Warren, who wants to use the Sherman Antitrust Act to bust up these big companies like Google and Facebook, who have become so powerful that they control over like 95% of the market, and that they do constitute a trust, at least in the informal sense. It would be nice to see them smashed into about 7 or 8 pieces so that we can all have a little diversity of opinion. So you might maybe look into that and take a look at that position. Talk a little bit about some of your other positions that you're running on. Where are you on defunding the police? Where are you on the new Green Deal? Where are you on crime and on education, et cetera?
Well, when it comes to the new Green Deal, the Green New Deal, sorry.
Whatever they're calling it
got
this
a
week.
bit of an interesting story involving that and Elizabeth Warren, your senator. She personally hates me. Got a funny story for you, and it's absolutely true. You can ask.
Congratulations.
The story's true, right?
Yes.
So it's going to sound crazy. Totally happened. I won't deny. Before I decided to run, I went to a lot of the Democrat primary town halls for the presidential race. I figured, let's see what the people running for president are doing. Let's see how good their game is and see if I would be able to compete with that.
Especially you're in New Hampshire, so you're up there with the first primary.
Exactly. And majority of them, if they don't visit me here in Berlin, they visit nearby in Gorham. So easy to see a lot of the presidential candidates, as long as they say they're going to come on time. Joe Biden, he told us that he was going to arrive the night before. And being a public school teacher, he wanted teachers there. He organized his event to happen in the middle of the school day. And he told the teachers, hey, please come the night before a school day. And it's like, we're going to leave the kids in the school?
Of course.
Anyway, this was back when the insanity was only starting to show its ugly face. So anyway, I went to a lot of town halls, and I went to one with Elizabeth Warren. And I try to be nice and polite during these events. So I sit there,
Good.
I have a smile on my face when it's appropriate to, I'll do a little applause. Just don't want to cause a controversy because I'm not there to make a scene. I'm there to hear their points of view and know how to better argue against them when I myself am running. So I'm able to hold my tongue. It's pretty hard sometimes. Elizabeth Warren is going off being radical, far leftist. And at the end of it, she gets asked a question. And she says, so there is one issue that is really pressing. It is the most pressing issue of this day and age and the most pressing issue of this election. And I have not yet stated my support of it. This was back March 2019, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've not yet stated my support of this issue, but I'm here before you today to announce publicly for the first time that I absolutely am in support of the Green New Deal. I couldn't do it. I could not hold my tongue. I burst out laughing. I just out loud. I tried to stop. It was just too hard to. So Elizabeth Warren, holding their microphone, just glared at me.
That's great.
Few seconds, just right into my face, glaring right at me in the eyes as I was just laughing before she was able to recompose herself and move on.
Yeah, she has this smirk that's typical of a lot of liberals. I mean, I don't mean to generalize here, but it's kind of like every morning she mounts from the top of Mount Sinai and comes down and gives wisdom to all of us little people. I mean, it's this kind of incredible arrogance that they have. And I'd like to see them, if they believe in the Green New Deal, fine. Let's hear them talk about what's actually in it Or maybe it's like Nancy Pelosi. You have to vote for it first before you find out what's in it.
Well, one of the great things about that, I don't like to claim credit, but I like to think I was a little part of it. It was the very next day or the very next week?
A couple days later.
Couple days later, okay. When it came up, she refused to vote for it. After she had publicly told us all in
that's
Berlin
funny.
that she unashamedly supports it. I like to think that I was a little piece of
I'm
her
sure you
deciding,
were.
you know what, not gonna say yes or no.
No. She's that type. I mean, she'll put a finger up in the wind and see whether or not something polls or whether something works. So generally speaking, you strike me as somebody who is a small, classic conservative, limited government,
Very big on liberty. I am the
liberty, and
liberty
also
candidate in this race.
the big programs that are in place, like obviously Obamacare and all of them. I mean, the general conservative position now is that not to abolish them, because they kind of are facts on the ground, but to reform them, to make them go back to their original mission, to make sure that they don't creep out and take over, entire aspects of our life. So where are you on these big government programs?
Politicians do or they don't. Okay, sorry, I completely missed what you said the last few seconds. You completely froze up.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, you were talking about Medicare and government programs and how we shouldn't fully withdraw them because they're embedded.
Yeah, but yet reform them. I mean, how do you think they should be managed? Because after all, Congress, if you're serving in Congress, Article 1, Section 8, Congress decides how these things are funded, and Congress decides how they are to be defined.
Well, the Democrats and their dream world, everyone gets free healthcare, everyone gets taken care of. It's all great. It all sounds great. The problem comes down to we live in the real world. We can't be living in fairy tale land. We have to realize that we need real world solutions to real world problems. And more often than not, the government is inefficient. It wastes money and it just restricts on freedoms. It's, what does regulation do besides just drag down on everyone's time and money? I really do believe in personal choice and freedom. And while, yes, some programs we cannot withdraw them completely, and it's great to live in a society where we can have safety nets for people who need it, the problem comes down to still allowing for individual choice as well as fiscal responsibility. So if we do not repeal such programs, I definitely want to ensure that we have better ways to streamline the governments involved with them, have some way to keep that freedom of choice for the Americans and keep things responsible in the government's end. Because the joke usually goes, do you want the DMV to be deciding what happens with your health care?
There you go. What about the Department of Education and the National Education Association? I don't mean to put you in the spot. I know you're a teacher.
Well, it's what's really shocking is it's not just me as a conservative. You go to most public schools and most public school teachers, the liberal ones, the conservative ones, the ones in between, most public school teachers will agree that Department of Education just does not help overall. It gets a bit trickier when you're talking about funding for special education because that's a big part of it. But overall, the requirements that are meted out, and there is no one size fits all. I'm in favor of local government, individual freedom, bringing things to the most fundamental level possible. And I do think there would be a net benefit. There's some good things about the Federal Department of Education, and completely getting rid of it would lead to a lot of bad things. But if you take, a net positive, net negative, myself and most of the teachers I speak to agree that if you just completely made the Federal Department of Education vanish overnight, it would be a net positive for the school systems.
Good. President Trump is talking about withdrawing some troops from our NATO alliance, particularly in Germany, and making the NATO members pay for the upkeep of their own military. He's also de-escalating in Iraq and Afghanistan. Where do you fall on that? I mean, what do you think America's role in the world should be? And what do you think of domestic military spending?
Well, we tried to be the ones to help police the world. We tried to be the nation that would help keep the peace across the world. And we're just told time and time and time again, no, we don't like you. No, we don't like you. No, we don't like you. Why do we keep working to defend all these nations if all they do is just badmouth us nonstop? big thing when it comes to organizations such as NATO, they're not paying their fair share. They agreed to pay a certain percentage of their GDP, and they can't even stick to that. So why on earth is America paying more than the percentage that we agreed upon for organizations such as NATO if the rest of the world isn't keeping up their end of the bargain? We're paying more than our share, and we're getting bad-mouthed at the same time. I'm very much in favor of America. We should take care of the American people, and we should pay attention to the American people. We shouldn't be paying attention to what foreign governments tell us we should be doing. And if they don't like our way, hey, it's our way or the highway.
All right, Eli Clemmer. In closing, would you deliver very briefly your elevator speech? Why do the people of New Hampshire, should the people of New Hampshire support you and ask for their vote?
Well, I'm a very liberty-minded candidate. I was the only candidate in this race and one of only 2 federal candidates in the state to speak out against the quarantine and speak to reopen New Hampshire, because I want it all to be personal responsibility. And I trust the people in New Hampshire to be able to make their own decisions. I'm very big in helping fix the cultural issues, because while I support free market economics and such, if that's our focus, and if we let the culture slide the way it has been, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, our country is just going to be a socialist cesspit. So we need to correct our culture. We need to do what we can to ensure, not that the government regulates and mandates that you have to have conservative points of view displayed, but just an equal playing field. That's all I'm asking for, because we know an equal playing field, our conservative ideals are going to win out. I'm also a candidate who's doing something different. I'm a political outsider. I haven't run before. Started in January. I didn't know what I was doing, and now my campaign is highly competitive.
Good.
Backed off very strong grassroots support. And I'm facing off against a 4-term Democrat incumbent who's got millions of dollars in the bank and 8 years in DC. So if we want to overthrow her, we can't use our conventional tactics, because the conventional conservative candidates who've gone against her just got demolished. Our most recent candidate lost by over 13%. We really need to reach out to the people in New Hampshire, because in New Hampshire, we're actually 40% neither party. 30% Republican, 30% Democrat, but that 40% chunk, that's where elections are won. That's where people care about their own personal lives, and they care about candidates they can relate to and candidates who have more in common with them. And so that's why in my campaign, we're reaching out to the everyday New Hampshire, and that's our focus.
Excellent. And where can people reach you and get involved and donate and set up lawn signs and all of that?
Yep. Well, we are on the website at clemmerforcongress.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Clemmer for Congress, and on Twitter, I'm Eli Clemmer. We have a very strong online presence, and we have a lot of great videos that my team was able to put together. So go check them out. It's always
Excellent.
great to get a like, get a follow. And if you want to help out with donations, volunteering, hey, that's great. Join the movement, and we'll see Ann Custer thrown out of office.
Excellent. Thank you, Eli Clemmer, for joining me. Let's stay in touch. Let's do it as you progress, hopefully, to Congress in November. And
thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
Live free, everyone.
Live free or die.
That's right.
Talk to you soon. All right.